Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, our first episode of 2026. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the Food Professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Our guest on this episode is Roxanne Joyal, founder and CEO of And Back. I've got their package right here if you're on YouTube. They have some wonderful packaging. There it is. And Back. Beautiful kits. Yep. What a great story. She's a very, very, very impressive person. We met Roxanne at the Coffee Association of Canada's conference back in Markham in the fall, and we're thrilled to get her on the mic. And Back is a proud women-owned business dedicated to empower women, driving economic growth, supporting local. Their mission is to offer business customers and consumers a premium coffee experience. And I have to say, their coffee is really, really, really good. And they take care of the coffee farmers and the communities. They're B2B and B2C. So they got it all going on. They're an amazing social company. They're very grounded in the communities they operate in, and a very savvy business. You'll hear all about it in a few minutes.
Absolutely. No, she's so I did too get the package, and very generous. And honestly, I was really impressed by her attitude and her willingness to change the world.
Yeah, it's no hollow promise. She's done it before. She's got the background for it. Again, very impressive.
Her success is no accident. No accident.
How was your holidays? I was thinking of you in the holidays because there's certain days where we go to a certain couple of Portuguese chicken places and we get takeout. And you know what we heard? We can't get chickens. So, you know, some of my holiday, I had great turkey, but a couple of nights, we're sold out of chickens. We can't get any more.
We've talked about it and say, well, you should have listened to the Food Professor podcast, so you would know.
That's what I told my wife, and of course she hit me for that. She said, you know, feel free to just tell me. I hear enough of you, but anyway, that seems to be continuing. You're like, you know, ripped from the headlines. Where are we with that anyway? By the way, are we catching up? I mean, I would think it would.
I'm still hearing rumblings. To be honest, here and there. The meat situation is still ongoing, but I do expect the meat situation or the chicken situation to get resolved very soon because of the very intensive production cycle, as we talked about before. So, and with supply management, I think someone probably gave a call to Chicken Farmers of Canada saying, "What's going on here? I mean, can we just address this domestically?" And they can pivot and do things very quickly and move things around very quickly. So I wouldn't be surprised if things get back to normal within weeks. The one thing that I'm hearing though is that there are shortages of lactose-free milk right now in many parts of the country. Yeah, and I honestly, Michael, I've been trying to figure out why, and it's not related to a retailer. It's not related to the weather or a disease affecting animals or a plant closure like a lockdown or a lockout or strike. There's none of that affecting milk right now. So I actually think perhaps it's an hypothesis that perhaps because of new vitamin D regulations impacting cow milk may have something to do with that. Because as of January 1st, well, vitamin D content has increased for cow milk because there are a lot of people who experience vitamin D deficiencies in the winter months because we don't have sun, and we've had vitamin D in our milk, but Health Canada 3 years ago decided to increase that content or the amount of vitamin B put into cow milk, and that's done in processing, not on the farm, but in processing. And so they may have prioritized some SKUs like 1%, 2% skim, whatever. But I suspect that some less popular milk, like lactose-free, may have been forgotten or will come a little bit later. So that's just an hypothesis. I think that's probably what's going on there.
Yeah, I want to get back to that a little later. I saw your op-ed about vitamin D. But otherwise, your holidays were good. I think it was it was pretty chilly, probably where you were. And
I'm happy to report that I won't need to take any Ozempic after the holidays. I haven't gained any weight. So
how do you? I think. Well, plus you work out pretty hard, right?
We ski, we do stuff. Even if it's minus 25, we go out. So yeah, we remain active as much as possible. And so eating is super important, of course, but exercising is equally as important.
Well, fantastic. Well, my version of exercise and eating was we in the family picked a day and we did a cocktail/pizza crawl in Toronto, and we had some amazing.
But it was worth it, wasn't it?
We went to some really, really amazing and innovative cocktail places. The dirtiest martini I've ever had. It was like, just punch me in the face every sip. And then we wound up. Shout out if you like pizza. And I'm probably not breaking new news here for anybody in Toronto, but if you like pizza, we went to Pizza Baleatti, which is kind of off Ossington Street, Queen Street West. Yeah. Small little place, and I have to say I haven't had pizza this good in a long, long time, if ever. Nice people, lined up out the door on a Saturday night, close at 10, sold out of big pizzas, only by just a fantastic
and
pizza
everyone's
experience.
Sober outside in the line? Is that the kind of place?
It is a place. There's no question they have at that time of the night, there's lots of people going there, but it's only 10 o'clock, like 9:30. Like the scene hasn't even really picked up yet, right? So This isn't a late night pizza place, right? They're done by 10. So you've got the kind of preload, so to speak. And for us, we started our drinking around 2 o'clock. So for us,
it's the holidays, right? So
it was the holidays, and we went to a very, very fun play. I was thinking of you because it was just a gas. Rogers versus Rogers, telling the whole Rogers succession story, and that whole battle for the presidency and the CEO-ship. Like you couldn't make this stuff up. The things that happen. Wow. Let's talk about the food business. Lots to talk about. Yeah. Now you've been pinging with different predictions for the year. Yep. I saw one particular I want to dig into in the restaurant sector, but
you saw my post over the holidays, yeah.
I did. I'm an avid reader. As you think about 2026, what are the kind of key predictions that you want to put out there? I mean, let's talk about the restaurant one first. You're saying you think there's going to be up to 4,000 restaurants go out of business. Now, my first reaction
there's going to be more out of business. It's just the net number will drop by 4,000. So there'll be openings, obviously. Yeah. But closures will outpace openings.
Well, by 4,000. my first thought about that is that normal? Because the restaurant business is a notoriously high, cycle business. Like is that number higher or lower than usual? Could you speak to that? Like on its surface, it's a very high number, but restaurants, don't have a long lifespan. So is it materially different than prior years?
Well, first of all, a lot of lobby groups and folks will rely on numbers coming from Statistics Canada to assess how many establishments do we have in Canada in food service. And frankly, what we found is that data is highly unreliable because the agency will look at registered businesses, but many of these registered businesses don't even have one single employee, and they're not even operational. So what we did basically is that we did take that number as a starting point, and we triangulated that data set with different economic drivers like the job situation, the job market, how much money people are spending in food service the last 2 years. Is that going up, down? We do that with the Canadian Food Sentiment Index with our dashboard. We also look at the number of employees in the sector, trying to figure out exactly if these numbers make sense. And so we basically try to drill down the approximate number of actual active establishments out there. And back in 2022, we believe that number was closer to 95,000. Okay. It went up for a few years, but since last year in 2025, we do believe that the number has dropped. In fact, 2025 was a horrible year. And frankly, you travel, I travel, I could see it. I mean, there were lots of empty empty areas, empty locales all over the country where there used to be a restaurant. There was a bit of a bloodbath going on last year, even though numbers provided by Statistics Canada were telling us a different story. But in reality, I actually do think that Canada had a net loss of 7,000 establishments. That's all categories combined. So QSR, food service, fine dining, everything. Okay. And we do believe this year, because of the state of the economy, the alcohol situation is also a big one. People are drinking less, and margins are pretty high with alcohol.
Sure.
And so when people drink less, so it's much harder to run a profit when people aren't ordering appetizers, aren't ordering desserts, and aren't drinking either. And so we are expecting that pool to drop. But to your point, Michael, I actually think, and I've actually said that somewhat to Restaurants Canada, is that this is more about right sizing the industry based on our economy. I do expect the numbers to go back up again eventually, but right now I'd say we're just looking at a normal phenomena. The problem with the 4,000 is that many of them will be independently owned. And those are the ones that provide a lot of food innovation to the market, typically, much more so than franchises.
You know, it's interesting when you say that indies, because, you know, some of the big chains, they make big decisions, like Starbucks. They wiped out a whole bunch of, locations as well, 300 locations in 1 year.
Wendy's, I mean, look at some of the big chains are for sale right now. Pizza Hut's for sale.
Pizza's really struggling. It's funny you mentioned that, because as much as I was reading this article in the U.S. papers about, the pizza is really just such a declining category, notwithstanding amazing specialty guys like I went to, but pizza is an overall declining category. We should get somebody on the pod to talk about that. It's probably just such a wide diversity. Is it people are looking to have different things and different meals? And because I know there's some areas in Mississauga that are I know you don't like the term ethnic, but they're all back to back small indies with Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian, and it's jammed. It's just crazy busy. So maybe pizza's just had its day, right? Less people are just eating pizza. Maybe it doesn't last forever.
I was in Markham, for the coffee show, and walking around, they were basically only Chinese restaurants, like real Chinese restaurants, not the buffet, and they were all packed. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock at night on a weekend.
People are eating out. People are dining out. I mean, I was in Vancouver, as you know, in December, and the restaurants were busy. I got a table, but I was just a single individual. Still love doing that, by the way. Still love doing that.
So, all right. So that's the part that's kind of sad here. I mean, a lot of these shops will probably disappear because it's tougher and tougher to, and of course we haven't talked about input costs. Input costs are way, way up. And after we posted our predictions for 2026, I did get a few phone calls from consultants, from people related to the food service business, telling me, well, that's what we're seeing, unfortunately. Yeah. So your predictions are absolutely believable.
What else are you thinking? What are you looking at in 2026? Now, of course, it's the year of the Code of Conduct. Karen Proud is going to be joining us live from Seattle. Actually, we'll get an update in April, but
there's not much to predict there, because it's going to take a while before we actually can assess the performance and the effectiveness of the code, of course, because this is really about relationships. And of course, what I'm expecting is more choice for consumers, like things that can actually be measurable, that impacts consumers, consumer choice. Food inflation stability, a little bit more stability. We're expecting some of that. I mean, as you know, we did assess how food volatility is impacted by the blackout, for example, and we're in the middle of it right now. It starts on November 1st, ends on at the end it ends on February 1st. So that blackout period is actually bringing more volatility in October and in February as well. So,
now, explain to the and we got lots of new listeners and people who maybe are less familiar with the grocery industry, what you call the blackout period.
The blackout period basically is a period during which grocers refuse any price changes, and of course the excuse given is the fact that it is the holiday season. It's a very busy time of year, and that's basically why. And it's a practice. It's an unwritten practice. It's been going on for a very long time, and frankly, I've always opposed that. I think it's a ridiculous practice. But anyways, it's indicative of how hostile some of these relationships are within the food industry. So once the code will harmonize a lot of that stuff and will discipline a lot of that stuff, hopefully, if it works. And then down the road, of course, at the market level, we'll be able to assess some of the changes going on right now. In fact, this is the time to assess, to take a picture of the market right now. And 1 year from now and 2 years from now, we should go back and see what are the differences between now and then, or in a year from now versus now.
All right. Well, let's keep an eye on that. Now, you mentioned something earlier on, vitamin D in milk. So long time coming, I guess, as I read through your op-ed, that this is not, just some impulse that was given. So basically, the government has mandated more vitamin D in milk as of January 1st.
And for those out there thinking, well, this is about supply management, and they're upselling supply management to Canadians and making milk more nutritionally desirable. Well, yes, but it's not really about supply management, because they're doing the same thing in the U.S., by the way, and they don't have supply management. So it's not really about supply management. It's more about a product consumed on a regular basis by people who are targeted by the policy, basically. Okay. And so, because people may think, well, why don't we do that with bread? Or why don't we do that with bread, there's so many brands. I mean, there's so many, it's harder to impose, to implement. So I get it. I actually think I think it's good policy. The problem that I have, again, with statistics, with Health Canada, is they're not good at bragging. They're not good at communicating with the public. Nobody knew about this. I actually wrote the op-ed over the weekend about this, and a lot of people were saying, what? Yeah. And people are wondering, okay, so we're toying around with Mother Nature? I mean, this is milk. Like, why does milk need to be fortified, okay, in processing? And all these things are evil these days. It's portrayed like evil by some groups. So I suspect that a lot of people would be asking questions. But overall, I think it's good policy. I just wish that our regulator, like what happened with clone meat, would be out there communicating with Canadians a little bit more often.
Well, let's stick with that subject. And you mentioned the same thing was happening in the States. I don't know if you saw the papers today, but my goodness. Kennedy turned the food pyramid on its head. Maha means eat more meat and dairy. And meat, what do you make of this? Meat, I mean,
dairy.
I mean, I my first thought, actually, just because my first thought was like, you're encouraging people to eat proteins are very expensive now, like even just an affordability issue, though that's a made up word, apparently. Is there some positive things kind of coming out of this? Is it all dogma? I mean, it's clearly, he's not a big fan of seed oils. He wants you to cook things in beef tallow and butter, and it's really turned it on its head. What were your your immediate response to this?
Well, so first of all, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a public health expert, but there's no consensus to support what he's trying to do. And we're talking about the MAHA movement to make America healthy again, led by Secretary Robert Kennedy Jr.
Robert Kennedy Jr., yeah.
Yeah, and there's no consensus. I mean, I think it's interesting. I think it brings up an interesting debate, because in Canada, basically what we did with the food guide back in 2019 was to bring a bunch of dietitians that are all like-minded. Let's be honest. They were all like-minded, coming from the same school, they all agreed. There was some consensus around the table, and they agreed that plant proteins were the future. And I'm not saying it's not. It's just I actually do think that it's important to make, I don't know, the food guide Canadian, because we live in a Nordic country, and we have a rich history around the production of eggs, chicken, dairy, livestock. I mean, those things may make a whole lot of sense to a lot of Canadians, and so the food guide in 2019 was completely un-Canadian. And I think there's some of that happening right now in reaction to these ideological thoughts driving food policy and nutrition policy. So again, I actually do think that the Canadian Food Guide is scientifically sound, but science is not an absolute. You actually have to look at different ways to feed a nation, and right now we have in Canada a regime pushing aside a huge portion of our ag economy. In the United States, they seem to adopt a more pluralistic approach to food, which I think is not a bad thing.
Well, I had two quick thoughts as I'm listening, reflecting what you're saying. One is I remember you telling me that the food guide is the number one visited page on the Government of Canada's website.
After tax forms.
After tax forms. Okay, that's okay. Yeah. After tax forms.
Yeah, that's important.
Okay, that's very important. But regardless of whether it's one or two, it's a very important document, like a lot of people. So I would imagine it would be similarly important in the States. That's going to make some big changes. And they, there's a crowd there that pushed back here too, that it was the lobby groups that influenced the pyramid versus nutritionists. What say you of that? I mean, that has been a criticism of, the food guide everywhere for a long, long time. This seems to be they're saying, well, we don't care what the lobbyists say, but I don't know. I think cattle ranchers of America did pretty well today.
I suspect so. So I think there was some lobbying involved here, I suppose. And I suspect that it will actually make a lot of people feel uneasy about it. I mean, let's face it, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is not about, his approach is not about consensus. And frankly, some people are criticizing his approach as being unscientific as well. And I see some evidence of that because he seemed to really base some of his comments on anecdotes and feelings and perceptions, and that's not necessarily desirable when it comes to food policy. But I do think what I got out of the story today in a Wall Street Journal is that I think the American government wants a very comprehensive discussion about how we should feed ourselves, but that should include also elements like culture, climate, traditions, and not say, because if you focus on science, everyone around the world will eat the same goddamn things. I mean, if you really obey to science, everyone's going to eat chickpeas and salad until the end of time. I mean, that's basically what this approach is all about, especially when it comes to Canada. But I don't think we want to go there. I mean, food is about celebrating. It's about enjoying. It's about being in good company. And I mean, you and I, when we go out, I enjoy the food, but it's about the connection and the stuff we talk about, and so there's a lot of that going on that is completely dismissed from the scientific method applied to many of these guides.
Interesting perspective. Let's take a break and let's listen to our amazing interview with Roxanne from And Back Coffee. Roxanne, welcome to the Food Professor podcast. How are you doing this morning?
I'm great. Good morning.
Good morning. It is great to have you on the mic.
Yeah, delighted to be here. Thank you. Just such a treat.
Now, where are we finding you today?
Oh, well, we're traveling. Right now, this is the busy season for coffee, especially for hot coffee. But we know that as the summer will progress, we'll get into the cold coffees. But right now, we're just doing a lot of traveling. And that's taken me all over Canada and the United States this fall.
Sylvain, I'm not sure we've had someone who is a Rhodes Scholar, Order of Canada recipient, and is in coffee ever on the podcast. I mean, that's a trifecta.
I feel like I feel like an underachiever right now. Like really.
Roxanne, you've got such an accomplished and interesting background. Take the people through it for a few minutes, and how did it lead to you starting a coffee company?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's truly a privilege to be able to do what I do, and would not be possible without an incredible team with whom I work. But really, the last 25 years, I've had the opportunity to work in the field of women's empowerment. I like to say that my journey has been one from beads to beans. And maybe to elaborate a little bit on that, in my previous career, I had the honor of working with about 1,600 women artisans around the globe, making these beautiful little beaded bracelets that would make their way out from the savannah in Kenya or in the Amazon in Ecuador into stores across America, whether it was Bloomingdale's or Nordstrom, but we also had a chance to work with Walgreens and actually the Bay. And just really an opportunity to help women tap into the global market by really focusing on their gift, which was one of beads. And we saw about 6 million of these little bracelets make their way out into the world. But with the advent of the pandemic, you can imagine people were not panic buying bracelets. And so there was an opportunity. And also, actually, all of the women with whom we worked in the artisan space were all mandated to return to their homes. And so there was really an opportunity to think about what my next career might look like. And I knew I wanted to get into the flow of something that people do every day. We often spoke about the fact that we want to work in this space where there was a need, not a want. And I also love to use this analogy that it's a lot easier to tinker with the undercarriage of a car that's not going 100 miles per hour. And so really in my second act, I knew I wanted to continue working in the space of women's empowerment, but we really wanted to get into that, again, that daily flow. And so from this idea of beads to beans, it so turned out that the places in the world where we manufactured all these wonderful little bracelets were in fact all along the equator in coffee growing communities. And so I say this a little facetiously, but from working with our artisan mamas, who, just to be super clear, the project was always a means to an end to enable women to save money in order to be able to re-leverage their earnings into small scale businesses in their own communities. And they're all doing super well today. But I like to say kind of cross the highway literally into other communities with farmers, women coffee farmers, and to learn about the opportunities that lay there. So in essence, that is the story behind the beans, so to say.
What started you down this path? I mean, you've got, as I said, you're an accomplished academic. You've got a legal background. Did you grow up wanting to think about? Were you always thinking about social justice? Was there a moment that turned you in that direction? Did you learn about it around the kitchen table? What set you down that path very early on?
Yeah, two quick things on that. The first is I'm actually a proud Franco-Manitoban. And so I come from agricultural communities just south of Winnipeg. And that's where like our family farm, so to say, resides. And so I've always had the opportunity to live in a very close-knit community. And I think with consideration of the other, if that makes sense. And I would say also the opportunity to finish my degrees on the Rhodes Scholarship, because it's such an extremely generous scholarship. And I'm also plugging this in case there's any other young people out there who want to consider applying for that, as I am a volunteer on that committee as well. But because
you have a new president, as we understand.
Yes, we do. Yes, correct? We do. And actually,
what's her name again?
Christian Freeland.
Yeah, right.
That's right. That's actually a great catch. That was a great catch, and I think an incredible choice. It's quite amazing. And just all to say, I was able to leave school without debt. And with that opportunity, I was able to just really launch myself into things without financial burden, if that makes sense. And I took a gap year between during my university years and spent some time in East Africa, and that really just kind of solidified my interest in this space. So again, we know when you look back, everything kind of came together to be able to make what is possible today.
Well, let's talk about this coffee company of yours. Yes. I've had the beverage. The branding is fantastic. I look at these things in multiple different ways. Sometimes the pragmatic, the branding is fantastic. You got a lot of programs going on, very sophisticated programs, and the packaging, as I said, is great. The product is wonderful. I was telling Sylvain, you got to go try this coffee. It's got this chocolate note to it.
Oh, right on.
And I thought, geez, where do I get more of this coffee? And then I looked down at the label, and then I walked over and met you. So tell us about the company itself, the scope, the scale. You've given a sense of purpose for the company, but tell us about the commercial elements.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. So actually, this is what's super interesting about NBAC. We're actually a B2B company first, and which is a little different in the coffee space. I think our experience has been a lot of companies launch in the direct-to-consumer space, which is fantastic. There's a ton of sexiness and sizzle there for sure. And the B2B space is a bit of an afterthought. So maybe just to explain that a little bit, basically we're talking about serving coffee in places outside the home, whether it's in a cafeteria, it's in an office, it's in a hotel, it's on an airline. And we just really felt that because people weren't paying attention to B2B primarily, we would actually go there first. And kind of bring all of that added value into that B2B space. So really the customer in this case is a company, if that makes sense. And we also knew that if we kind of focused in this company space, like one decision maker often will then decide what, for example, 80 to 1,000 people might drink in the workspace. And so this meant that this was also an opportunity to create scale very quickly. So knowing we wanted to go into this B2B space and that we wanted to be disruptive in this space, we felt, let's just bring all of that sizzle and that content that you often see in direct to consumer into B2B. And then what problem were we trying to solve for companies? Well, two things that we try to do in this B2B space. The first is to help companies get more value from their procurement. I mean, businesses procure things all the time. And so how could we actually help them to do two things? The first is by leveraging their procurement to be able to tell stories to their employees about what they care about as a company. So in this case, NBAC Coffee is a woman-owned, woman-grown premium coffee program. And so just really companies being able to have that daily touch point with their consumers or their employees through coffee. And the other key piece is a lot of companies have had to make commitments around workplace engagement, around sustainability, and this whole idea that by choosing NBAC Coffee as one of their choices within the workplace or in a hotel, they're able to satisfy some of these commitments and to do it in a way that is through a lot of storytelling so that we can really understand the people, as I like to say, behind the bean. But also through impact frameworks, through the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that underpin all the work that we do, and through a series of certifications and commitments so companies know that we walk our talk. And so that is the coffee program in a nutshell, and we're distributed nationally. Very pleased to say that. We're in over 500 workplaces right now across Canada, coast to coast to coast. We are, as well as in hotels, and we're also in the US. And our early adopters there in the US kind of include, I'd say, Microsoft, Netflix, and Google, among others. That we've had some great adoption there as well.
When did you enter the US? I'm just curious.
That's a great question. We entered the US about a year ago.
A year ago, wow. And things are progressing well?
So again, we've had just really great success with companies who are really trying to create that touch point with their employees, who are investing in the employee experience at work. And I mean, we can talk about this now or later, but clearly the tariffs, was certainly a bit of a U-turn. And then from there, we've actually done another U-turn.
Yeah, exactly. Lots of U-turns this year for sure. Yeah. You make it sound so easy. I mean, both Michael and I, we've been interacting with the coffee industry in Canada for quite a few years now. So we are fully aware that there are many huge pressures affecting the industry: climate change, labor, rising costs. I mean, so what's keeping you up at night mostly right now with NBAC?
Well, we're very lucky, I think, in many regards. And so we have a wonderful roasting partner. And we also have a wonderful distribution partner who are helping us to manage fluctuations in the market. And so this approach of bringing NBAC into the market has been one around partnership, which is great. We know with the volatility in the C market, people who have been in business for a very long time, roasting coffee, have gone under, importing coffee have gone under. And so, certainly I've been very fortunate that many people have been offering their mentorship and opinion as we kind of navigate these challenges. These are all real challenges, Sylvain, that you mentioned. I think if we take one step back from that for just 1 second, is that I think we think of coffee as a commodity, and it's really an agricultural good. So at the end of the day, I think it's going to be about trying to find solutions because it's all about the people behind the bean. That's kind of where I spend my time.
Yeah, you do focus on people very much. I mean, even though you're a B2B company, you're very much focused on people based on how you're talking about your business for sure. And do you think that's really the main focus for you and your company?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's about connecting the consumer to their cup of coffee. And how do we do that in a way that is really authentic and meaningful? And at the end of the day, for us, it's really all about reinvesting back into the coffee growing communities across the coffee belt and in the countries where we source our coffee as well. And you might wonder, why is Roxanne focused on women? Why is she focused on women? Well, we know, in the development sphere that for every dollar a woman earns, 90 cents of that will go to her kids, her household, and her community. And so I often say, this whole woman-owned, woman-grown message it's a nice message, but it's actually also a very smart message, and we should really, really focus on that. And so, again, in addition to sourcing properly so that coffee farmers can receive a fair price for their work, as I mentioned, we reinvest back into projects in these coffee growing countries, and that's also a joy. Things like agricultural literacy training for women coffee farmers in Kenya. Many of these women haven't had an opportunity to finish school. And so the chance to be able to learn how to build a P&L for their farms is something that they find pretty darn exciting. And then it could be other things like an agricultural literacy program for farmers and young entrepreneurs in Ecuador, in the Amazon, where people are working together to increase the quality and the quantity of coffee that they're growing. And I would want to say also that in addition to this being an economic project, with these projects, it's also a social project in the sense of creating dignified work for people in remote communities is also a social project, as a lot of young people don't want to leave their rural communities and go look for work in the cities. And so this is also a way to preserve families, communities, as well as cultures. I'm having a blast. That's all I have to say. And again,
we talk about when you crafted your business plan, as you kind of execute your plan. I often think about things like table stakes and differentiators. And you would not be the first great entrepreneur we've had on the podcast talking about fair trade coffee and enabling women to grow and their contribution, outsized contribution to their community. So not that that's table stakes, but fair trade is not an uncommon thing in the coffee industry. How do you think of that? What do you think is your differentiator that is winning you the business that you think you're going to platform success from?
Well, thank you for that question, Michael. I think what I would say is twofold. The first, absolutely critical, was our national distribution right out of the gate, which is with Van Hood Coffee Services. They've been an incredible partner. And what's been very important in this process is that we are a national bilingual brand. And that's something that's actually been very important to me. So when we talk a little bit about my roots, and I mean that with humility, this was something that I was very excited to kind of bring back into the fold. So again, you can build it, but will they come? So the question of being able to find a national distributor out of the gate who is willing to hold hands and see whether this would work was absolutely critical in the process. And the second, again, was the focus on B2B only. This was incredibly intentional. I think, Michael, you and Sylvain can speak way more about this than I can, but we know, I'm not sure if you've been in an aisle in a grocery store lately, the coffee aisle, I think it's about maybe 12 feet long. Is that possible? If not longer, at retail. So you have seconds to pick something. And it's not that we don't want to be there, but we just felt that we would have a greater opportunity for scale and success in B2B. And that's why we decided to head in that direction and to focus all of the energies that otherwise companies spend in the D2C space and to really plow that into the B2B. So candidly, it was an experiment. Yes. I mean, we know that, but I'm very happy to say that signs are good.
Where are you, or where is the industry winning with women in coffee growing industries or regions, I should say? And where's there room for improvement? I can imagine the USAID cuts have been somewhat traumatic around the world, perhaps even in your communities, but where's there more work to be done?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. We know that we've made some progress. There's more to be made. We know that we want farmers to be able to earn a dignified income. So we want this to be a profession that we want them and candidly their families to pursue. And we know that coffee, now there is a lot of there is some large scale farming for sure happening, but there's a lot of small scale farming happening as well. So I think it's important for people to think about the people behind the cup. So it's, in my opinion, where we can develop prosperous and dignified futures in coffee farming is around diversification. And so again, people on these small plots have an opportunity to cultivate coffee, but also cultivate other multiple income streams, if that makes sense. I'd love to give an example, if that's okay. We actually work with a coffee cooperative in Ecuador that is working, again, with remote communities to cultivate this indigenous Robusta bean, and just creating these high quality beans that are making their way out into the market. But also this cooperative, very smartly, is also cultivating a fungi that helps to protect the Robusta bean in the Amazon. And the farmer, or I should say also the cooperative leader, is actually also having as much success distributing that fungi responsibly than he is, as well as creating income around selling coffee. So it's really giving people an opportunity to innovate and to really create, different opportunities. Because, again, as we mentioned, coffee is not a commodity. It's an agricultural good. And as a result, we're not always in control. And if I could just add to that, Michael, I think I would say where we want to continue to see improvements is I really do think that there is value behind certifications. But we just we need to make sure that if the farmers are going to invest in certifications, that the purchasing volume is justified. So I think we do need to focus on that. And then the last piece that I always think is important to mention is that we need to work through the social and economic structures in the countries where our women coffee farmers are located. And so when we do these reinvestment projects, it's really important for us to work from the ground up in those projects to really leverage social structures that empower women. And also, there are women also advocating for change and more like systemic economic structures. And if people are wondering, what is she talking about? But it's things like the ability to own land, for example, to be able to open a bank account, to be able to manage their finances through their phone as they can. And so these reinvestment projects are really important because they provide women with additional financial literacy in order to be able to manage their businesses.
you're doing a lot. You're dealing with a lot, but we need to talk about the big elephant in the room affecting the coffee category. Of course, it's price, food inflation. Obviously, a big issue for everyone. How do you deal with that? How do you actually balance inflation, the cost of living, prices, or price points with the social justice agenda that you're trying to foster and honor?
This is a great question. I mean, some people argue that coffee's gone up 40% in some cases.
If you actually look at the entire food basket, there's baby formula and beef, and number 3 is coffee or last year or so in terms of increases. Yeah.
Yes. And, I'm certainly not here to lecture anybody on their purchase decisions. I think our goal is to give people choice. I think the thing we always need to think about also is, again, the intention versus the purchase gap. Yes, and the other challenge is people only have an absolute number of dollars to spend on any given week on their groceries. And so I think we are seeing people reduce pack sizes and things like that. The one silver lining in all of this, and you might be wondering how could you be finding one, is we are focused on the B2B space and not in the consumer space per se. And what's happening in that space around like workplaces, being away from the home, is a bit more positive, if I can say. We all probably know that there's some fairly substantial return to work mandates happening in January. And so workplaces are going to want to provide their employees with an engaging experience at work.
And you're part of that solution.
We're a part of that solution. The other really important thing is, as you may recall, for example, Starbucks closed a number of locations within Canada. And so again, within the workplace, there's going to have to be some great solutions at work. And again, just really focusing on this like workplace engagement and sustainability commitments and engagement. So from a office coffee perspective, it's actually a good place to be at the moment.
That's good. One last question for you. If there's one thing you would be able to change about the global coffee system tomorrow, what would that be?
Well, I think at the end of the day, our goal at Anback Coffee is to figure out how can we contribute to creating dignified and prosperous futures in coffee farming for women coffee farmers, but also for their children. That is what we're doing. So this is really a long-term project. What I am always thinking about is two things. The first is how can we elevate the product again? And something somewhat synonymous would be something like wine. Wine is also, obviously grapes. We grow grapes and we make wine. And so how do we continue to bring that elevation to coffee? And again, that's a long-term project. And I think, what we're really focused on at this point in time is how do we create a conscious connection between coffee drinkers and farmers. And that is what we're focused on through content, through storytelling, because at the end of the day, I think we do need to ask ourselves, what would our day be like without a cup of coffee?
I can't imagine life without coffee myself, for sure. Yeah. Listen, Roxanne, this has been an incredible conversation. Congratulations on all your success. And again, thank you for joining us on the Food Professor podcast.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Let's finish on, and I don't think there's much to talk about here, but since it's dominating the headlines, there's things going on. I've heard some rumblings about stuff going on in Venezuela and Greenland.
What's going on in Venezuela?
Of something. Is there any agri-food implications to any of this? I suspect not. I mean, I don't really think it's got anything to do with anything, but, we often touch base on it. Is there any implications you could see about trade or process that
Obviously, every time something like this happens, the first thing I try to assess is whether or not there's any food implications for Canadians. And right now, I'm not seeing anything because our trading relationship with Venezuela is almost nil from a food perspective. I mean, we don't buy much from them; they don't buy much from us. And other than oil, I'd say that there are two things that we'll be watching very closely. One is energy costs, like the price of oil, if that goes up. And right now, I mean, I'm looking at pricing right now. It hasn't moved a whole lot.
Yeah, pretty stable. Yeah, it's
pretty stable. So that's good. And so that's certainly something that we'll be watching. But and the Canadian dollar versus the greenback. I mean, we're watching what's going to happen to the American dollar. Will it weaken as a result of what's going on, and that's going to impact our importers' buying power, especially over the next several months. So that's the one thing. But going back to oil, I mean, we need to keep in mind that the number one customer for Venezuela when it comes to oil is China. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Prime Minister Carney is going to China next week. I actually do think, and I know he's going to get a lot of criticism as a result, but I think it's a good thing for him to go to China to reconnect, re-engage. Why? Well, first of all, it's the second largest economy in the world. And we have disputes with China right now affecting ag, including tariffs on canola, pork, lobster. We tend to forget about that, but we still have this ongoing dispute. Since 2018, our farmers, our food industry has suffered greatly from a very, very bad and tense relationship with China. And Venezuela, to me, is a proxy war for Trump against China, not Venezuela. That's at least that's how I'm seeing it. And I do think it's going to be important for Ottawa to look at several options diplomatically and geopolitically as we try to figure out exactly what President Trump is trying to accomplish here.
Well, that what was that Chinese saying? May you lead an interesting life. I think that's going to be our political people in Ottawa.
What are your thoughts quickly? I mean, what do you think?
What's happening in Venezuela and potentially in Greenland and wherever else, this kind of spheres of influence, hemispheric, Dunroe doctrine kind of stuff. I mean, I think Venezuela ticks off many, many boxes, right? It could crush the Cuban economy and finish that off. They just seized a Russian freight liner. China's involved. I mean, it's very interesting. It's very complicated. So,
I'm just watching the Canadian dollar. The Canadian dollar is down since Monday. Like it's being hammered.
Yeah, I think the biggest, and then we're certainly not an oil and gas podcast or an economy podcast, but I think the biggest reverberation is where did that? It wasn't about drugs apparently. Now it's about oil. Let's come clean about that. Just like it wasn't about fentanyl with Canada. Now they're getting all this Venezuelan oil, which I understand. I'm not clear exactly because I'm not in that space. That is very similar to the crude they get from Canada. So to your point, we better be finding other markets, but who knows how this is all going to work out.
Yep.
Very dynamic.
Lots
Lots
of noise, certainly. And it's really challenging to get to the signal because people are saying, look, forget about the noise, look at the signal. What is the signal?
Where is that signal? I can tell you this, though. You and I are going to be on the mic each and every week trying to parse that signal from the noise in our industry.
And we'll keep it to food. It's not a political podcast.
Not a political podcast. We'll keep it to food and the food industry and restaurants, grocery. Got lots of great interviews coming up for the rest of the year. That's it for this episode. Great to see you again, my friend. I miss you when we're not on the mic together. So I'm looking forward to lots of time together. Again, we'll be in person in Seattle. Until then, everybody, I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm the food professor, Sylvain Charlebois.
Safe travels, everybody.
Take care.